The Nashville Predators have traded Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn to the Pittsburgh Penguins. On today's show, we are going to talk trade details, what this move could mean, and why some Predators fans are convinced one win is the worst thing to happen to this franchise since the Kyle Turris deal.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy game day, everyone. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio and friends. I have two partners in crime.
You do. You have already seen our upper management here at Locked On Predators. That was Minka, and I am Emma Lincoln, Nashville Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
We wanted to start off this episode with a glimpse of Minka because Minka brings joy, and this episode has us a little bit in the feels. Last night, Barry Trotz working after hours, Barry Trotz, making some deals. The Nashville Predators have traded Tommy Novak and defenseman Luke Schenn to the Pittsburgh Penguins. On today's episode, we are going to talk about the details of this deal, why it happened, what it might mean for the Nashville Predators in the short term. We also want to talk about the fact that one win, ladies and gentlemen, has Predators fans' bowels in an uproar. We're going to talk about that as well. And it's game day. We're going to preview tonight's Seattle game. Before we dive into all of that, do want to let you know today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Emma. Barry Trotz not working them 9 to 5 hours with the trade deadline looming. We're not being critical. We're just taking note of the clock there, Barry. Got word later in the evening that the Nashville Predators have traded Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Emma, okay, first of all, let's talk about the return, and then let's talk about what did not have a deal like this on my bingo card for a couple of reasons. We'll get into that, but talk us through the return here.
Yeah, speaking of not having this on our bingo card, fun fact, everyone, this is our second take. We already recorded this episode once, and then we had to do it again because,
thanks, Barry.
Again, Barry Trotz, after hours. We love you, Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Luke Schenn, Tommy Novak to Pittsburgh. The return is Michael Bunting and a 4th round pick in 2026. So I'm going to just start out by saying this trade makes very little sense for either team unless it's potentially a precursor to something else. These are two teams that were they're both out of the playoff race right now. They are both expected to be sellers to some degree at the deadline. And yet they are selling to each other. And it, like I said, it just makes very little sense right now because, the Penguins now have this aging core, right? And they're, trying to build around Sidney Crosby. So what do? They get 35-year-old Luke Schenn.
As one would. No.
Now, that said, the Penguins they do really need some help on defense. Like that is like an area that is weak for them. So I think that in sort of a vacuum, it makes sense for them, but a lot of the deals don't, or the details don't make sense. And then they get Tommy Novak. So he is in year one, actually a year to the day after he signed his 3-year extension in Nashville. They traded him to Pittsburgh. So he is in year one of that 3-year contract extension. He's got a $3.5 million cap hit over the next 2 seasons after this one. All told, with the money and everything, the Predators end up netting $1.75 million in cap space for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And because Bunting comes at $4.5 million. Bunting he plays with that kind of an edge, kind of like if you want to take a positive from this, I would equate him to being like a Kiefer Sherwood type of player with, maybe a little bit more scoring upside. He struggled a little bit this year, but he could be a really good, change of scenery candidate. He kind of plays with that edge. He plays with that physicality. But he can also score. So, he's 29 years old. He's signed through next year, which again gives, Barry Trotz did say like he wasn't going to be trading for any true rentals where you only have them through the end of this season. He's getting someone with a little bit of term, I guess, if you want to call it that. He's, like I said, a down year by his standards, but overall, in terms of like total body of work, Bunting is an offensive upgrade over Tommy Novak. Plus he brings a little bit more of that grit and, that hard edge that, while Novak, while very skilled, didn't really have that element to his game. So I think that is, take that for what you will, but I think that's kind of what Bunting brings to the table. And then again, Nashville gets another draft pick in 2026, which brings them now to 8 total for that year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This is so fascinating. This deal is fascinating to me. And I'm interested, like you said, I'm interested to see what's next. Like, is something else happening? A couple of things that I want to point out just from the Nashville perspective. You talked about Michael Bunting coming in. This season we have seen a number of players depart Nashville under different circumstances. Dante Fabro, Juuso Parssinen, Phil Tomasino. Tommy Novak, for me, has not fallen into that could use a change of scenery player. He has not had a particularly great season. Welcome to the Nashville Predators locker room. I mean,
who has?
There's not been anybody where you could be like, that one guy is hitting it out of the park. No, but nothing about Novak's season made me say, man, this is a guy who needs a change of scenery. So this is an interesting move for me, especially because it just recency bias. It looked like Tommy's kind of settling in after such a rough start. Like we saw some steps forward more recently from him. Let's just throw out the nightmare scenario for fun, Emma. Just picture it with me as you reach for your Tums. A line in that ugly Pittsburgh jersey of Tommy Novak, Phil Tomasino, Cody Glass. And look, you all, when that line just starts popping off, don't come crying to Locked On Predators. Don't come crying to Locked On Predators. That is like Ellie Tolvanen on steroids.
Yeah, you thought Tolvanen was bad. And we're saying like, it's interesting. What does each team really get out of this deal? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense on the surface. I'm like, here's what's happening. This is what Pittsburgh's trying to do. They're just trying to reassemble the 23-24 Predators and go on an 18-game point streak and get into the playoffs. That's what's happening. We just figured it out. That's the goal.
There it is. Yep. The other thing I will say when it comes to Luke Schenn leaving, we have talked about this in the podcast before. Luke Schenn, truly one of the most delightful people to talk to, leader in that locker room. Like, I know people have said trade him for a bag of pucks. He's such a liability. He has not been a liability. There have been times where Luke Schenn has been perhaps one of the best defensemen this season, and that's true for a number of reasons. But just for perspective, on a game day, post this trade, I want you all to just realize this. The defensive lineup tonight, your most tenured Nashville Predators blue liner is Brady Shea, y'all. Brady freaking Shea has played the most games for the Nashville Predators defense of anyone else you're likely to see on the blue line. And friends, it's not even close. You know who's number 2? Sir Blankenberg.
Sir Blankenberg. Wow. What a time to be alive.
What? Like, it's like the Alamo in the locker room right now. They are dropping like flies, you all. So this fascinating move. I hate to see Schenn go from a leadership perspective. Look, he is the Kevin Bacon of the NHL. He is the E.F. Hutton, if you're old enough to know what I'm talking about, of the NHL. Like, when Schenn talks, people listen. He's seen it all. Hate to see them go. This is the deal that's made. We're going to keep our eye on what comes next, because both Emma and I are like, say what? Okay. I mean, if you wanted to, but yeah, this was not two sellers making a deal like this near the deadline. This was not on our bingo card. But again, let's see what Barry Trotz does with this. Coming up, we are going to talk about another interesting aspect of what's going on with the Nashville Predators, and that is the fact that the response to Tuesday night's win against the Boston Bruins has absolutely become a catastrophe, people. The worst thing that could possibly happen was one win this week. We're going to talk about why and what we think of that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there is no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on that fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. You're going to love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether you are backing your team for a late game rally or you are picking that player who's going to hit the clutch 3, you will never feel like you missed your chance. Plus, the app is so easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Emma, if we thought that going into morning skate, looking around going, who's still standing, is going to be a whole thing, it pales in comparison to some of the whole thing that we saw from some of the Nashville Predators fan base after they had the absolute audacity to win a game. One game. The game against the Boston Bruins has caused such a fascinating uproar and ruckus on social media among a segment of the Nashville Predators fans. So Emma and I just wanted to talk about this. And really what it comes down to, Emma, is this argument between wins and momentum versus losses and that potential franchise changing draft pick. And the Nashville Predators are going to screw around and win games. And it's going to be the worst thing that has ever happened to this franchise since Kyle Turris.
I'm exhausted already just hearing that. I mean, good Lord, people. Like, first of all, it is one win.
One. And
One.
you know they're hard to come by. It's not like this team is great at putting two together, but okay, go ahead, Emma.
Yeah, one win. And oh, by the way, remember that conversation we had a minute ago about who your most tenured Nashville Predators defenseman is now? Well, yeah, don't expect a lot more of those wins to be coming now as a result of that. So fret not, people. But no, I think look, it's one win. And even if they did go on some kind of little run here, they're still not making the playoffs. they're still going to have a relatively high draft pick because, oh, by the way, people, the draft lottery exists. So teams don't draft in reverse order of the standings. There is a lottery. So even if, the Predators are 30th in the NHL right now, that does not guarantee that they will draft third in the draft next year. So does it increase your chances? Sure, but nothing is guaranteed. And quite honestly, the difference between picking third and picking fifth is not going to just drastically alter the direction of your franchise. Hate to say it, but it's not. And so I think that it's a huge overreaction for people to say, oh my gosh, what are they doing? How dare they win a game? So now we're never going to fire Andrew Brunette and we're never going to get a high draft pick and it's going to be terrible forever.
Everything's terrible.
Everything's terrible. Listen, if you think that, oh, my ring light just went out. Sorry, everybody who's watching this. You're watching me in the shadows now. This is going to get real dark.
She's gone to the shadow world because this argument has just taken her there.
This is going to get real dark, everybody. No, I think that if you think that there is a fraction, a molecule, a cell, what is the mitochondria of any of these guys on the team that is going to play to lose, then I can't help you. Like, these guys,
who is going to tell Ryan O'Reilly to lose? I want to watch it happen in slow motion.
Yeah. So I'm going to just say, like, it should be needless to say, but apparently we need to say it. These are professional athletes. They play to win. Full stop.
That's their job. That is
literally
their job.
No one is going to try to lose. All these people saying, well, the veterans are just checked out, so they just need to embrace the tank. They're not checked out. Trust me. We're in there talking to them every day. They are not checked out. So the fact that people are going on and on about, oh, I can't believe they would win a game. How dare they? This is terrible. Calm yourselves. Take a deep breath. It's one win. And even if they do something crazy, like go and win 2 in a row, it's still not going to change the direction of the franchise. So everyone just take a breath.
And look, here's what we know about the Nashville Predators. And I say this with respect. This team is consistently inconsistent. This is also now, as we mentioned at the top of the show, a team that is dealing with a very different looking roster, especially defensively. And that was already a problem before Luke Schenn went to go get himself Permani Brothers. So it's going to be more challenging, I think, for Nashville, especially through this stretch as this roster is adjusted. But again, remember, there is a draft lottery. And yes, I understand that you want to get a high draft pick because look, Nashville has not been this close to a top draft pick in a long time. And I understand that. But you also have to weigh out the benefits of this high, quote unquote, high draft pick. Remember, it's a draft lottery. You do get better odds, but the odds are not ever in Nashville's favor. At the time of recording, 11.5% chance to get the first overall pick, 11.2% chance to get the second overall pick, 7.8% chance to get the third overall pick, 39.7% chance to get the fourth overall pick. So this is not like, because Nashville, as Emma said, is the third worst team, they're getting that third pick, baby. That's not how it works. You have to weigh all of that out, the odds, with the fact that you have a core group of veterans who are going nowhere. Some of these guys are not leaving. And what you need for them is some sort of momentum into the offseason to build on. Both of those things have value. And I know it's more glamorous to get that spicy, shiny new toy in the draft, but there is also a value to veterans finding some momentum and some chemistry, albeit way too late. You all are not wrong. This season has been disappointing and it's too little too late, but there is value to both of those. So we just want to point that out. That win against Boston, not the worst thing that's ever happened to the Nashville Predators. Feelings are like farts. Just an indicator of something. Doesn't mean that that was the worst thing that's ever happened in this franchise's history.
And you know what? It's like you said, it's a good thing. Is it the worst thing that's happened to the Predators? No. Is it the best thing that's happened to the Predators? Also no.
Also no.
But there is good that can come of it. Like that, we saw Luke Evangelista on the top line with Steven Stamkos and Ryan O'Reilly, and he looked like a new man.
Yes.
It was like, oh my gosh, you put this young, talented, rising star in theory with quality line mates, and look what happens. Look what happens. He has his best game of the year. Now, to my earlier point, it's one game, so we're not going to overreact to that. But if we start to see that with some more consistency, then it's like, aha, here is the value of these final 20-something games of this season, is that we're starting to see, okay, well, this year's a wash, that's fine, but that doesn't mean we just go through the motions for the last 20 games. It means we try to figure out, okay, this year sucked, let's make next year better. And this is how you do it.
And I think the thing that fans have to remember, and if you don't believe this, I get that, but I'm going to ask you to trust us a little bit. Nashville's problem, no matter how much we all want it to be just one thing and one move, one change, one coaching change, one general manager change is going to turn it around. That's actually not true. You are 21 games from the end of the season, and you are still trying to figure out exactly all of the components that have gone into this season being such a disappointment. There is a lot to unpack here, and you can't just write off this season because you don't know everything that went wrong. And I know you want to know everything that went wrong. We all do. And we want it to be one thing that's an easy fix, but it's not. And so these games matter. Win or lose, results aside, these games right now still matter. This team still needs to do the diagnosis if they're going to make any good moves in the offseason. I also don't think any sort of run at this point is going to lengthen Andrew Brunette's leash to an extent that people will not like. It's going to be so short. It's going to be Juuso Parssinen short, y'all. Juuso Parssinen short, no matter what happens.
Call back. That's saying something.
That's right. Coming up, the Predators have a chance to absolutely crush the spirits of some of the fans with a potential win tonight. But don't worry, they could still lose. Everybody keep breathing. Tonight, they are facing off against the Seattle Kraken, and their roster is going through a trade adjustment as well. We'll talk about that coming up. When a big move like a trade comes down, Emma and I turn to our Locked On Predators insider community to break it all down and to gauge thoughts and questions and ideas about the moves. We talk about our Locked On Predators insider community during game recaps as well, and we want to invite you to be a part of it. It happens via subtext, and it's an opportunity to text with Emma and I beyond the podcast about things like trades, lineup decisions, even game recaps, breaking news. If you are interested in becoming a Locked On Predators insider, you are welcome to check out the link in our bio, or you could check out the description for this video. Nashville Predators back on the ice tonight. A little bit of a different looking team. That elder statesman Brady Shea baby, his 61 games in gold. It's going to be a whole thing. But they are taking on the Seattle Kraken. And Emma, this is a Seattle Kraken team that is going through its own major roster shakeup with the trade deadline. Of course, Seattle traded Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand to Tampa Bay In exchange, Seattle got Michael Eissemont, a first-round pick in 2026, first-round pick in 27, and a second-round pick in 2025 coming up this summer. Tampa Bay went all in. And, look, these are two good pieces. They were pretty good pieces for Seattle. Bjorkstrand is fourth on the team, was fourth on the team in Seattle in points, third in goals. Yanni Gourde heading back to Tampa Bay. He's been there before. He knows what it's like to live in the sunshine. He played there from 2015 to 2021. Of course, we all know anytime the Predators face the Seattle Kraken, it brings up the post-Tolvanen trauma issues that we have, where every time he touches the puck, we're like, it's a dagger to our heart. So we've got that factored in tonight. When you look at the changes on the Seattle roster, Emma, what do you think that does to this team coming in tonight?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty significant shakeup, but it's similar to what the Preds are going to be going through too. They lost two key pieces. I know it's a stretch to say that anything's a key piece on this Predators roster right now, but I mean, talking about where Bjorkstrand was in the scoring, pecking order in Seattle, that's kind of about where Tommy Novak was for Nashville.
Yeah.
So I think that you're losing some scoring, but also it's just, losing two guys like that. Yanni Gourde is a veteran guy and kind of a, not playing wise like Luke Schenn, but in a locker room sense, he's a Luke Schenn kind of guy. Like, he's been around for a while. His teammates love him. I just think that you're losing a lot on and off the ice. So I think that's, of course, it has an impact. And, the same can be said for the Predators as well. And, these are two teams that are out of the playoff picture, expected to be selling. This Seattle, it certainly seems like they have started selling. Nashville, I don't quite know what's happening there.
I don't know what just happened.
They're selling to other sellers, I guess. But hey, you know what? That Gus Nyquist, that was a good trade. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't know. We'll see. But either way, these guys now are, sort of, it's almost like trauma bonding a little bit, how like the trade deadline can really kind of galvanize groups of guys like this, because it puts everybody on edge a little bit. I know I talked about this the other day, but when we, with the 2022-23 Predators, the year that Matthias Ekholm got traded and Mikael Granlund, Tanner Jeannot, and like that locker room, it was tough to be in, because you could tell everyone's kind of on edge. Like, am I next? Like, what? And even the guys who might know that they're not next, like a Philip Forsberg knows he's not getting traded, but it's still like it kind of rocks your world a little bit. And so I think that it's definitely, it definitely impacts teams. Like, it can rattle them a little bit, but it can also galvanize and help bring them together.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see Nashville and Seattle tonight, to see how these two teams sort of find a new equilibrium, especially going head to head. I think it'll be interesting to watch this game. Now, of course, Seattle has had the upper hand against Nashville this season. They have won both of their matchups, outscored the Predators 10-3, baby. That's great. I will say this though, I wish I could remember which game it was. Watched a Kraken game pretty recently. Joey Decord has been eating his Wheaties. Oh my gosh, Joey Decord just been fantastic in goal in the game. I wish I could remember what game it was. So good to watch him. I was like, okay, sir.
See, I was going to say, it doesn't even matter what game it was, because you could be talking about a lot of games, because Joey Decord has had a very good season. Did he shut out Nashville earlier this year?
Yes.
It's been
they were
years.
shut out. It's been 84 years, friends. That was back in November, where we had that thing called hope.
Ah, yes.
Suckers.
We were younger.
We were younger.
And
Naive.
Yes.
Not nearly so jaded.
We've seen some things since, and now now here I am shrouded in darkness after this season.
You're like one of the Dementors from
Oh God.
Azkaban.
I just put my hood up and
Put your hood up. Yeah.
uh,
Oh, when you look at this game tonight, Emma, despite the changes on the roster, the upheaval, trying to kind of find some new equilibrium, perhaps adding a piece into the lineup that is new. What is a key for Nashville tonight against Seattle? If they want to win, which by the way, some people don't, but let's just say we're talking about a good performance, results aside.
yeah, I think oof. I mean, it's going to be a tall order, as we have already discussed, but you need to, this defense, whatever the heck it is, whatever it looks like, and it's going to be rough because in addition to being the longest tenured defenseman for Nashville, Brady Shea might also have a pretty significant size advantage over the rest of them. So it's going to be interesting. So I think, and I would say this was a key, even if Luke Schenn was still there. You gotta limit the scoring chances for Seattle. And I mean, the fact that, what'd you say, they outscored them 10-3?
10-3 in the two games. One game was 7-3 win for Seattle. One was 3-0, baby. Didn't even sniff the back of the net that night.
Yeah. So, and there's no, I mean, listen, we know we've seen the Predators get shut out enough this season, 9 times to be exact, but there is no reason, especially now that they've lost Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand, there's no reason you need to be giving up 7 goals to the Seattle Kraken. And I mean, no disrespect, but they don't have, that kind of offensive firepower on their team where you would expect a score like that. I mean, really, you should never expect a score like that, but you need to limit those scoring chances and be responsible defensively. And yes, it's on the defenseman, but it's also on the forwards. We talked about this after the game over Boston, the win over Boston, that goal that they gave up to Morgan Geekie was just like the perfect illustration of, ooh, puck, let's all go chase it. Oh no, the net's wide open. Well, we're down a goal. Like, guys, come on. It's
gotta do better.
You gotta limit those chances.
Yeah. I think we should start referring to that Boston win as Voldemort. The game that shall not be named, because it caused such a ruckus. It caused such a ruckus, y'all. When I look at this game against Seattle, the thing that I would really like to see is I would like to see the power play do well. And I know that that is a bit of a big ask in the sense that you have lost Roman Josi to injury. You have lost Gus Nyquist to a trade. And those were your 2 go-to guys when it comes to bringing the puck up the ice and into the zone on special teams. And so for me, I would really like to see a couple of guys step up. Tommy Novak also was at times ballsy about doing that as well. By the way, he's now in Pittsburgh.
I will also say, though, on that note, that Michael Bunting, very big power play weapon for Pittsburgh. So I think it was something like, now I don't have it in front of me, but like a good chunk of his goals this season have come on the power play.
Let's look. So, he has 14 goals on the season, 9 of them on the power play. Steven Stamkos Jr., welcome to Nashville. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So
that'll be interesting to watch. But I would love to see special teams get going. Seattle does not have, they're kind of bottom third when it comes to penalty kill. And I think Nashville needs some mojo on the power play. So that's something that I would really like to see. Look, friends, here's what we want to tell you. Win or lose, the Predators have some things they need to figure out when it comes to this roster. They have some things they need to figure out when it comes to what happens from here on out. Whether that happens with a win or lose, let's all just come together tomorrow. Emma and I are going to recap that game with one word to describe it. We are going to all just talk about the Serenity Prayer because it is as good for hockey as it is for sobriety. And let's just see what happens. We have no idea. This is our second episode today. Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn to Pittsburgh, not on the bingo card, people. Anything could happen. So just jump back in on tomorrow's show with us. Win or lose, we will make it fun-ish. We're just trying to get through this season with you all. Yeah. Before we wrap, it'll be air quotes something. Before we wrap up this episode for the second time today, Emma, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
You can find me in my home office, shrouded in darkness. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
This is what the season has done to Emma, you all. This is what it has done to Emma. You can find me on social media and K_Mama on Ice. You can, of course, find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. Friends, that is going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for joining us and making us your first listen of the day. We are going to be back tomorrow to recap the Seattle game and, of course, to keep you up to date on any other moves Barry Trotz makes. We're going to see you then.